Dr. Blake Harper wiped the dust from her gloves and stared at the crystalline device embedded in the ancient wall. She had been digging in these ruins for 3 long years, ignoring every warning from the Galactic Council. They called her reckless. They said she was wasting time on a dead civilization that had nothing to do with humanity. But Blake knew better. She could feel it in her bones. The crystal was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was perfectly smooth, about the size of a basketball, and it seemed to glow from within even though no power source was nearby. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols that looked almost familiar but not quite right. "Blake, are you sure about this?" Ryan Cooper asked from behind her. Her research partner had been with her since day one, and he looked nervous. His hand kept moving to the communication device on his belt. "The council made it very clear. If we activate anything without permission, they'll shut down the entire dig site." Blake ignored him. She had not spent 3 years of her life in this dusty, forgotten corner of the galaxy just to walk away now. The ruins on Threshold 7 were older than any civilization the Council had on record. Older than the reptilian empires, older than the insect collectives, older than anyone could explain. And yet, the architecture felt wrong in a way she could not put into words. It felt human. She pressed her palm against the crystal. For a moment, nothing happened. Ryan let out a breath of relief. Then the crystal pulsed under her hand like a heartbeat. Light exploded through the chamber, so bright that Blake had to shield her eyes. The symbols on the walls began to glow, and suddenly the air itself seemed to hum with energy. A voice spoke, clear and perfect, in English. "Welcome back, Founder. Primary genetic signature confirmed. System reactivation authorized." Blake stumbled backward, her heart racing. A massive holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, filling the entire space with a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. But this was not just any map. Thousands of points of light dotted the image, each one pulsing with the same rhythm as the crystal. Each one marked with strings of data that Blake's mind somehow understood were human DNA sequences. "That's not possible," Ryan whispered, his face pale. "Blake, humanity only left Earth 200 years ago. We're the newest species in the galaxy. Everyone knows that. We're practically children compared to the other civilizations." The codex hummed and the voice spoke again. "Incorrect. Species designation, human. Origin, architect civilization. Galactic age, 4 million years. Status, reseeding protocol successful. Founder recognized. Awaiting instructions." Blake felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. For million years? Architects. Reseeding protocol? None of this made any sense. Humanity had evolved on Earth. There were fossils, genetic records, millions of years of evolutionary history. They were newcomers to the stars, stumbling their way into a galaxy already populated by older, more advanced species. Except apparently they were not. Alarms started blaring throughout the dig site. Red lights flashed on Ryan's communication device. "Council security ships just entered orbit," he said, his voice tight with panic. "Blake, they're coming for us. They must have detected the activation." Blake barely heard him. She was staring at her hands, at the codex, at the impossible truth spreading out before her. Without thinking, she reached for the crystal again. The moment her fingers touched its surface, it dissolved into pure light. The light rushed up her arm, spreading through her body like lightning through water. She gasped as information flooded directly into her mind. Jump gates. Terraforming stations. Atmospheric processors. Weapons platforms that could crack planets. Medical facilities that could cure any disease. Manufacturing centers that could build fleets of ships in days. All of it scattered across the galaxy. All of it dormant. All of it waiting for human DNA to wake it up. "Emma, we need to run." Ryan grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit. "Now. They'll arrest us, shut down the site, bury all of this." Blake looked down at her hands. Faint patterns glowed just beneath her skin, like circuitry made of light. The codex was inside her now, bonded to her nervous system. She could feel it thinking, calculating, waiting for her commands. And suddenly she understood something that made her stomach twist. Every piece of advanced technology the Galactic Council used, everything they had built their civilizations on, had been salvaged from ancient ruins. Ruins they did not understand. Ruins they had reverse-engineered and repurposed. They called the original builders the precursors, and assumed they had died out millions of years ago. But the precursors had not died out. They had hidden themselves, scattered themselves across forgotten worlds, waiting. And now one of them had just woken up. "Run where?" Blake asked quietly as explosion sounds echoed from above. Council troops were breaching the dig site. Ryan, I don't think running is going to help. Not anymore. The stolen shuttle shook violently as it passed through the jump gate. Blake Harper gripped the armrest of the co-pilot's seat, her eyes closed, trying to make sense of the flood of information pouring through her mind. The Codex was showing her things, teaching her things, filling in gaps in human history that she had never known existed. "What are you seeing?" asked Lieutenant Taylor Brooks from the pilot's seat. The security officer had been assigned to arrest Blake and Ryan, but when the Codex activated and Council forces opened fire on the dig site, Taylor made a split-second decision. She helped them escape instead. Now all three of them were fugitives. Blake's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Everything. I'm seeing everything. Ryan, we didn't evolve on Earth. We were planted there." "What do you mean planted?" Ryan asked from the back of the shuttle. He was monitoring their pursuers, but his attention snapped to Blake. "That's crazy. We have fossil records going back millions of years. We have DNA evidence of our evolution from primates." The Codex responded to Blake's thoughts, projecting images directly into the shuttle's cabin. Holographic displays filled the air around them, showing impossible scenes from the distant past. Cities that stretched across entire continents. Ships that moved between stars as easily as cars on a highway. Humans looking exactly like modern humans, building wonders that would make current galactic civilizations weep with envy. The original humans, Blake said slowly, processing what she was seeing, they called themselves the Architects. They ruled the galaxy 4 million years ago. Everything the Council uses now, every piece of technology they think is theirs, the Architects built it first. The jump gates that connect all the planets. The atmospheric processors that make dead worlds breathable. The subspace relays that let us communicate across light years. All of it. Every single piece. Taylor's hands tightened on the controls. If that's true, why doesn't anyone know about it? Why aren't there records? Why did humanity appear on Earth looking like cave dwellers? Because something happened, Blake said. The Codex was showing her now, and what she saw made her blood run cold. Something called the silence came. The silence. Ryan leaned forward. "What is that?" "A weapon. An enemy species." Blake's eyes snapped open, and both Ryan and Taylor flinched at the look on her face. It was not fear exactly. It was something deeper, more primal. "It's not a weapon. It's not even alive. It's a region of space where consciousness itself cannot exist. Imagine a place where thinking is impossible. Where awareness just stops. And 4 million years ago it started expanding." The holographic display shifted, showing a map of the galaxy. A dark void crept across it like a cancer, consuming star systems, erasing everything in its path. Not destroying it, Blake understood. Just making it empty. Dead in a way that went beyond physical death. "The Architects fought it," Blake continued, her voice distant as she accessed more memories. "They tried everything. Built defenses. Developed weapons. Created shields that could protect whole solar systems. Nothing worked. The silence kept expanding. It was slow, but it was unstoppable. So they made a desperate choice." "What choice?" Taylor asked quietly. Blake looked at her hands, at the faint glow still visible beneath her skin. "They scattered themselves. Took their own species and broke it apart. They found hidden worlds in the far corners of the galaxy, places the silence would reach last. And they seeded those worlds with primitive versions of themselves. Stripped away the technology, the knowledge, the civilization. Made themselves start over from the beginning." "Earth," Ryan breathed. "Earth was one of them," Blake confirmed. "But there were others. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Each one carefully chosen, carefully prepared. And they did something else. They embedded genetic triggers in our DNA. Markers that would stay dormant for millions of years, passed down through generations, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Taylor demanded. "For us to evolve back to technological maturity," Blake said. "For us to rediscover spaceflight, advanced computers, genetic engineering. When we reached that point, the triggers would activate. We would find their ruins, access their systems, and remember who we really were." Ryan pulled up the galactic news feeds on his datapad, and his face went pale. "Blake, you need to see this." The screen showed emergency broadcasts from across the galaxy. Every major government, every council member species, every alliance and federation was saying the same thing. Humanity was a threat. An existential danger that had to be contained immediately. Orders had gone out to quarantine all human colonies. No ships in or out. No communications. Complete isolation. "They're scared," Blake said, watching the feeds. She could see it in the alien faces, hear it in the translated voices. Their entire civilization is built on our ancestors' ruins. They've been scavenging our technology for millions of years, reverse engineering things they barely understand. And now the real owners are waking up. Taylor checked their scanners. We've got Council warships forming a blockade around human space. Blake, this is bigger than us. This is going to be a war. Blake closed her eyes again, diving back into the codex. There was more. She could feel it. The architects had not just scattered themselves randomly. They had a plan. A purpose. They were not just running from the silence. They were setting a trap for it. And somehow, Blake and the rest of humanity were the bait. The Forge station hung in the darkness of space like a dead moon, its surface scarred and ancient. Blake Harper stared at it through the shuttle's viewport as they approached. According to the codex flowing through her mind, this facility had been dormant for over 4 million years. Waiting. Always waiting. Then the station sensed them. Lights flickered across its surface, spreading like wildfire. Entire sections that had been dark and cold suddenly blazed with energy. The station was waking up, and Blake could feel it recognizing her through the codex link. Founder DNA detected, a calm voice announced throughout their shuttle. Welcome to Manufacturing Complex Sigma-7. All primary systems operational. Secondary systems coming online. Defensive perimeter established. Did that thing just turn itself on? Ryan asked, his voice tight with disbelief. He was staring at the sensor readings, watching power levels climb to numbers that should not be possible. The massive hangar doors opened automatically as their shuttle drew near. No security checks. No authorization codes. The station simply recognized Blake's DNA signature and welcomed her home. Taylor guided the shuttle inside, and what they saw made all three of them fall silent. The hangar was enormous, easily large enough to hold 100 ships. But what caught their attention were the production lines. Massive assembly systems hummed with activity, robotic arms moving with precise grace as they constructed ships from raw materials. These were not like any vessels the galaxy currently used. They were sleeker, faster-looking, and covered with technology that Blake somehow knew was centuries beyond anything the Council possessed. Holy hell, Ryan breathed, pressing his face against the viewport. Blake, those ships are building themselves. And look at the designs. Those aren't human ships. I mean, they weren't built by modern humans. Blake unbuckled from her seat, feeling the codex pull at her mind. She needed to go inside. The station was calling to her, guiding her, showing her where to go. She moved through the shuttle like someone in a trance, barely aware of Ryan and Taylor following behind her. The moment Blake stepped onto the station's deck, every door in sight slid open. Lights brightened along the corridors, pointing her forward like a trail of breadcrumbs. The air was fresh and clean despite the facility being sealed for millions of years. Life support had activated automatically. Temperature, oxygen levels, even the gravity felt perfect. The station knew what humans needed. They walked through corridors wide enough to drive trucks through. Every room they passed showed signs of automated reactivation. Computer terminals glowed with data. Manufacturing bays assembled equipment. Storage areas opened to reveal weapons, tools, supplies, everything an advancing civilization might need. Blake reached a command console in what looked like the main control center. The moment her fingers touched its surface, her vision exploded with information. Schematics flooded her mind. Weapons that could punch through any known shielding. Defensive systems that could protect entire planets. Faster-than-light drives that would make current jump gates look like horse-drawn carriages. Medical technology that could cure diseases that had plagued humanity for generations. Blake. Taylor's voice cracked over the radio, sharp with urgency. You need to see this. Now. Blake pulled herself away from the console and joined Taylor at a communication station. The lieutenant had managed to tap into galactic news feeds, and what Blake saw made her heart sink. Human colonies across the galaxy were lighting up like Christmas trees. Earth had detected the Forge Station's activation and sent exploration ships to other architect facilities. Threshold Station, the one Blake had discovered, was fully operational. New Boston Colony had found a manufacturing complex and was already producing a defensive fleet. Mars Base reported weapons platforms coming online in orbit. Every hidden installation the architects had left behind was waking up, responding to human DNA, recognizing their creators had finally returned. The Galactic Council had officially declared humanity a threat to galactic peace. They were mobilizing fleets, calling in allies, preparing for war. But something else was happening too, something that made Blake's blood run cold. Look at this, Ryan said, pointing to another screen. He had accessed the station's long-range sensors. All across the galaxy, ancient defense systems were activating. Not the ones humans were turning on. Different ones. Automated weapons platforms that had been hidden inside asteroids and dead moons for millions of years. They were coming online and scanning every ship that passed nearby. And they were flagging the Council's vessels as unauthorized users. The architects left fail-safes, Blake realized, the truth clicking into place. If anyone tried to stop humanity from reclaiming what was ours, if any species tried to prevent us from accessing these systems, the automated defenses would recognize them as threats. As thieves using stolen technology. An alert flashed across every screen in the control center. 3 Council warships had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel nearby. Heavy cruisers, armed with enough firepower to level a city. They were moving into attack positions. Blake looked at the weapons console. The Forge Station had defensive systems that made those warships look like toys. One command, one simple thought sent through her codex connection, and she could vaporize all 3 ships. The crews would not even know what hit them. "What do we do?" Taylor asked quietly. Blake stared at the tactical display. The codex was feeding her combat strategies, showing her exactly how to win this fight. How to win every fight. The architects had built these systems to be unstoppable. They had made sure that when humanity finally woke up, nothing could stand in their way. They had called her founder. Given her the keys to an empire. But what did that make her? A liberator bringing humanity back to its rightful place? Or a conqueror with the power to dominate every other species in the galaxy? Blake's finger hovered over the weapons console as the Council ships moved closer. Blake stood before the Forge Station's central computer core, diving deeper into the codex files than she had dared before. She needed answers. Why had the architects scattered themselves? Why build all these installations and then abandon them? The deeper she went, the colder her blood became. "Ryan Taylor, you need to see this right now." They rushed to her side as Blake projected what she had found into the air above them. A massive 3-dimensional map of the galaxy materialized, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. But there was something wrong with it. A dark void crept inward from the outer rim like spilled ink, consuming star system after star system. Not destroying them. Erasing them. Where the darkness touched, there was nothing. No stars, no planets, no light. Just emptiness. "What is that?" Taylor whispered. "The silence," Blake said, her voice hollow. "It's back. And according to the codex, it never really left. It's been growing this whole time, eating its way toward the galactic core. We just couldn't see it because it moves so slowly. But it's there and it's coming." Ryan zoomed in on the void's edge. Entire civilizations were in its path. Billions of lives that had no idea what was heading their way. "How long do we have?" Blake pulled up the codex's calculations, numbers streaming across the holographic display. 47 years. Maybe less. The silence will reach the galactic core in 47 years, and when it does, everything dies. Not just physically. Consciousness itself will cease to exist in those regions. The architects knew about this, Taylor said, understanding dawning in her eyes. That's why they built all of this. The stations, the network, everything. They didn't flee, Blake confirmed, gesturing at the installations lighting up across the map. Dozens of them, scattered throughout the galaxy, all connecting to form a massive grid. They tried to save the galaxy. This entire network was designed to anchor consciousness itself. To create a barrier that the silence couldn't cross. They were building a defense system on a galactic scale. Ryan frowned at the map. "You said we're building." Past tense. Blake nodded slowly. "They never finished it." The silence came faster than they expected. They got maybe 70% of the network completed before they ran out of time. So they made a choice. They scattered themselves across hidden worlds, embedded genetic triggers in their DNA, and hoped that someday their descendants would wake up and finish what they started. "We're the backup plan," Taylor said quietly. "We're the only plan left," Blake corrected. She pulled up more data showing power flows and network connections. Half the installations were still dark. Half the grid remained incomplete. The codex has the blueprints. It knows what needs to be built, where each piece goes, how to complete the barrier. But we're running out of time. A priority communication signal flashed across the screens. Blake accepted it, and the weathered face of Admiral Mitchell Kane appeared. He was commanding the human fleet that had gathered near Earth after the installation started activating. Behind him, Blake could see the bridge of a warship, officers moving frantically. "Dr. Harper," Kane said without preamble. "The Galactic Council has officially declared humanity an existential threat. They're mobilizing every fleet they have. The orders just came through to seize all architect installations by force and place every human colony under quarantine. They're terrified, Blake said. She understood it now. The council species had built their entire civilization on technology they had salvaged from architect ruins. Technology they barely understood. And now the original builders were back, activating systems the council did not even know existed. They think we're going to take over the galaxy. Can we complete the network? Kane asked bluntly. Can we stop the silence? Blake examined the schematics floating in front of her. The network was incredibly complex, more advanced than anything she had ever seen. But there was something else she noticed, something that made her heart sink. Admiral, it's not that simple. The network requires coordination. Multiple species working together. What do you mean? The architects designed it that way deliberately, Blake explained, highlighting different sections of the grid. Each installation needs a different type of consciousness to operate at full capacity. Human brains, yes, but also the neural structures of other species. The way insectoid minds process information. How energy-based beings perceive reality. The architects understood something we forgot. Biodiversity makes the system stronger. It needs all of us working together or it doesn't work at all. Taylor checked the tactical display. The council doesn't want cooperation. They want us dead or locked away forever. Ryan pulled up the news feeds again. Council fleets were moving into position. Human colonies were arming themselves. Both sides were preparing for war. Blake, they're not going to listen. Even if we tell them about the silence, they'll think it's a trick. Blake stared at the map, at the approaching void that would consume everything if they failed. The Codex was showing her battle strategies. Humanity could fight. With the architect installations fully activated, they could win. Could reclaim their legacy. Could rule the galaxy the way their ancestors once did. Or they could try to save it. But saving it meant trusting species that currently wanted them dead. It meant sharing power instead of seizing it. It meant choosing cooperation over conquest. Blake's hand hovered over the controls, and she knew that whatever choice she made in the next few minutes would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. Blake Harper stood in the central chamber of the primary nexus, the beating heart of the entire architect network. The room was massive, large enough to hold 1,000 people, and its walls pulsed with light that seemed alive. This was where it all came together. This was where they would either save the galaxy or watch it die. Representatives from every major species surrounded her. Humans, yes, but also council members who had chosen to listen instead of fight. It had taken 3 weeks of desperate negotiation, of showing them the data over and over, of watching the silence consume another star system while they argued. But they were here now. That had to count for something. The silence doesn't care about your politics, Blake told them, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. It doesn't care about your borders, your governments, your pride. It's not a war we can win with weapons. It's extinction. Pure and simple. If we don't work together, everything dies. Ambassador Theron, a reptilian council elder with scales that shimmered like oil on water, studied the holographic data floating between them. His eyes were cold and calculating. Dr. Harper, you're asking us to trust you. To work with technology that could make humanity unstoppable. Technology that, frankly, terrifies us. You could activate these installations and rule the entire galaxy. Why should we believe you won't? Blake took a deep breath. She had expected this question. Had prepared for it. But standing here, with the weight of billions of lives pressing down on her shoulders, the words felt harder to say than she had imagined. I'm not asking you to make me queen of the galaxy, she said quietly. I'm asking you to help me finish what the architects started 4 million years ago. Look at the data. Really look at it. She manipulated the holographic display, highlighting different sections of the network. Human DNA opens the doors to these installations. That's true. But the system requires multiple forms of consciousness to operate at full capacity. Different brain structures. Different ways of thinking. The way your species processes tactical information. The way the insectoid collectives share knowledge. The way energy-based beings perceive dimensions we can't even see. The architects understood something that we forgot. Diversity doesn't make us weaker. It makes us stronger. This network only works if all of us use it together. Admiral Daniel Stone's voice crackled through the communication system. He was commanding the human fleet still gathered near Earth, waiting for Blake's signal. Dr. Harper, our colonies are ready. We can activate our sections of the network independently. We don't need the Council's help to do this. No, Blake cut him off sharply. That's not enough, Admiral. I've run the calculations 100 times. If we try to activate the network with only human consciousness, we'll get maybe 40% functionality. That won't stop the silence. It'll slow it down for a few years, maybe a decade. But it won't save the galaxy. It has to be everyone working together or it fails completely. The chamber fell into heavy silence. On the screens surrounding them, long-range sensors showed the silence creeping closer. Another star system flickered and died, consumed by the void. Millions of lives gone in an instant. Ambassador Theron stared at the display for a long moment. Then, slowly, he extended a clawed hand toward Blake. "Show us how this works." Blake felt tears prick at her eyes, but she blinked them back. This was not the time to break down. She moved to the central console and placed her palm on its surface. The codex responded immediately, systems coming online throughout the chamber. Neural interface stations rose from the floor, dozens of them, each one designed for a different species. One by one, representatives stepped forward. Humans, reptilians, insectoids, energy beings, even synthetic intelligences. Each one connected to the network through the neural interfaces. Blake could feel them joining, their consciousness linking with hers and with each other. It was overwhelming. Beautiful. Terrifying. The network came alive. But not the way the architects had built it. This was something new. Something better. A synthesis of every species, every mind, every unique way of perceiving reality. The installations across the galaxy blazed with light, connecting to form a barrier of pure consciousness. And the silence stopped. For the first time in 4 million years, it stopped advancing. When Blake finally disconnected from the interface, she was crying. She could not help it. Ryan caught her as her legs gave out, and Taylor was there immediately with water. "Did it work?" Taylor asked, her voice tight with worry. "Better than work," Blake whispered. She pulled herself to the command console and, with Ryan and Taylor watching, she permanently disabled the founder privilege protocols. Every last one. She locked them out so thoroughly that no human would ever be able to claim special access to the architect systems again. The architects tried to save the galaxy alone and failed. We needed each other. All of us. The installations transformed before their eyes. Shared infrastructure now. No species in control. All of them working together. Months later, Blake stood on Earth, watching ships from 100 different worlds working on the network. Maintaining it. Improving it. Together. Ryan found her there holding 2 cups of coffee. "No regrets?" he asked, handing her one. "You gave up godhood." Blake smiled, watching an insectoid vessel dock alongside a human station. "The architects were never meant to rule the galaxy, Ryan. They were meant to teach us that survival requires cooperation. That we're stronger together than apart." She sipped the coffee. "We're not conquerors returning home. We're the reminder that the galaxy belongs to everyone." Above them, the stars shone brighter, protected by the work of thousands of species united as one. The founders' true legacy was not power. It was hope.